Thus Selection Chapter 21. In the end, I decided against hiding in my room. Instead, I chose the women's room. Usually, I darted in and out all day, visiting libraries, taking walks with Marlene, and even heading back upstairs to visit my mates. But now I was using the women's room like a cave. No men, not even guards, were allowed inside without the Queen's express permission. It was perfect. Well, it was perfect for 3 days. With this many girls, it was only a matter of time before someone had a birthday. Chris's was on Thursday. I guess she mentioned it to Maxton, who seemed to never pass up an opportunity to give someone something. And the outcome was a mandatory party for all the selected. As a result, Thursday was a mad rush of girls in and out of one another's rooms, asking what they were wearing and guessing how grand it would be. It didn't appear that gifts were required, but I figured I'd do something nice for her all the same. On the day of the party, I donned one of my favorite day dresses and grabbed my violin. I crept to the great room, looking around corners before I committed to walking on. Once I made it to the room, I did another sweep, surveying the guards that lined the walls. Mercifully, Aspen was nowhere to be seen. I had to chuckle at the presence of so many men in uniform. Were they expecting a riot or something? The great room was decorated beautifully. Special vases hung on the wall, displaying huge arrangements of yellow and white flowers. Similar bouquets were on the bowls around the room. Windows, stretches of wall, and very much anything that didn't move was draped in garlands. A few small tables had been set out, and they were covered with bright linens. Little bits of glittering confetti sparkled on the tabletops. Ornate bows adorned the backs of chairs. In one corner, a massive cake had matched the colors of the room and waited to be cut. Next to it, a small table held a few gifts for the birthday girl. A string quartet was set up against the wall, effectively making my attempt of the gift meaningless, and a photographer wandered the room capturing the moments for the public eye. The mood in the room was playful. Tiny, who had so far only managed to get close to Marlene, was talking to Emeka and Jenna, and looking more animated than I've ever seen her. Marlene hovered near the window, looking like one of the many guards dotting the wall. She made no effort to leave her close chosen spot, but stopped anyone who passed by to chat. A group of threes, Kaylee, Elizabeth, and Emily, all turned and waved and smiled. I returned the gesture. Everyone seemed so friendly and happy today, except for Celeste and Brielle. Usually they were inseparable, but today they were on opposite ends of the room, with Brielle speaking to Samantha and Celeste sitting alone at the table, clutching a crystal glass of deep red liquid. I obviously missed something between yesterday's dinner and this afternoon. I gripped my violin case again and walked toward the back of the room to see Marlene. Hi, Marlene. This is something, isn't it? I asked, setting down my violin. It sure is, she hugged me. I hear Maxton's coming by later to wish Chris a happy birthday in person. Isn't that sweet? I'll bet he has a present, too. Marlene went on in a typical enthusiastic way. I still wondered what her secret was, but I trusted her enough to bring up the subject if she really needed to talk about it. We spoke of little nothings for the few minutes until we heard a general clamor of the front door of the room. Marlene and I both turned. While she remained calm, I was completely deflated. Chris's dress choice was incredibly strategic. Here we were all in day dresses, short, girlish things, but she was in a floor-length gown. But the length meant little. It was that her dress was a creamy, almost white color. Her hair was done up in a row of yellow jewels, pinned in a line across the front for a very subtle resemblance of a crown. She looked mature, regal, bridal. Even though I wasn't entirely sure where my heart was, I felt a pang of jealousy. None of us would ever have a similar moment. No matter how many parties or dinners came and went, it would be rather pathetic to try to copy Chris's look. I saw Celeste's hand, the one that wasn't clutching her drink, ball up into a fist. She looks really pretty, Marlene commented wistfully. Better than pretty, I replied. The party continued, and I mostly crowd watched. Surprisingly and suspiciously, Celeste clung to Chris, talking up a storm as Chris circled the room, thanking everyone for coming, even though we really had no choice. Eventually, she made it to the back corner where Marlene and I were standing, soaking up the warm sun from the window. Marlene, true to form, threw her arms around Chris. Happy birthday, she squealed. Thank you, Chris replied, returning Marlene's affection and enthusiasm. So you're 19 today, right? Marlene asked. Yes, I couldn't think of a better way to celebrate. I'm so glad they're taking pictures. My mom would love this. Even though we do pretty well, we never have money to have something like this. It's so beautiful, she gushed. Chris was a 3. There weren't nearly as many limits in her life as mine, but I imagine anything close to this scale was hard to justify. It is impressive, Celeste commented. For my birthday last year, I had a black and white party. Any trace of color, and you weren't even allowed in the door. Wow, Marlene whispered, obvious any envy in the tiny word. It was fantastic. Gourmet food, dramatic lighting, and music. Well, we flew in Tesla Tamble. You've heard of her? It was impossible not to know Tesla Tamble. She had quite a dozen hit songs. She had at least a dozen hit songs. Sometimes we saw her videos on TV, though that was frowned on by Mom. She thought we were infinitely more talented than anyone like Tessa, and it irked her to say to no end that she had fame and money when we didn't for doing essentially the same thing. She's my favorite, Chris explained. Well, Tessa's dear friend is a dear friend of the family, so she came in and did a concert for my party. I mean, we couldn't have a bunch of Drury Fives sucking all the life out of the room. Marlene gave me a quick sideways glance, and I could tell she was feeling embarrassed for me. Whoops, Celeste added, looking at me. I forgot. I meant no offense. The sticky sweetness in her voice was infuriating. Once again, I was tempted to hit her. Better not push it. Then tank it, I replied, as composed as I possibly could. Exactly what do you do as a 2, Celeste? I mean, I've never heard your music on the radio. I model, she answered in a tone that implied I should have known that. Haven't you seen my ads? Can't say I have. Oh, well, you are a 5. I guess you can't afford any magazines anyway. It hurt because it was true. May loved to sneak peeks at magazines when we managed to go to the store, but there was absolutely no reason for us to buy them. Chris, taking on the role of host again, switched directions. You know, America, I've been meaning to ask you what your focus was as a 5. Music. You should play for us sometime. I sighed. Actually, I brought my violin to play for you today. I thought it would make a nice gift, but you already have a quartet, so I figured, oh, play for us, Marlene begged. Please, America, it's my birthday, Chris echoed. And they've already given you a, I didn't matter how I protested. Chris and Marlene had already shushed the quartet and made everyone come to the back of the room. Some girls fanned their dresses out and sat on the floor, while others pulled a few chairs toward the corner. Chris stood in the middle of the crowd, clutching her hands with excitement, as Celeste stood by, holding a crystal glass as she was yet to take a sip from. As the girls settled themselves, I prepped the violin. The quartet of young men who had been playing walked over to support me, and a few waitstaff had been buzzing around the room became still. I took a deep breath and brought the violin to my chin. For you, I said, looking at Chris. I let the bow hover above the strings for a moment, closed my eyes, and let the music come. For a while, there was no wicked Celeste, no Aspen lurking in the palace, no rebels trying to invade. There wasn't anything but one perfect note stringing itself to the next in such a way that seemed afraid they might get lost in time without another one. But they did hold together as they floated on. This gift that was meant to be something for Chris became something for me. I might be a 5, but I wasn't worthless. I played the song, as familiar as my father's voice and the smell of my room, but for a brief, beautiful moments, and then let it come to an unavoidable end. I gave the bow one last sweep across the strings and lifted it into the air. I turned to find Chris, hoping she'd enjoy her gift, but I didn't even see her face. Behind the crowd of girls, Maxton had walked in. He was in a gray suit with a box under his arm for Chris. The girls were kindly applauding, but I couldn't register the sound. All I saw was that Maxton wore a handsome, awestruck expression, which slowly turned into a smile for no one but me. Your Majesty, I said with a curtsy. The other girls all clambered to their feet to greet Maxton. In the midst of this, I heard a shocked squeal. Oh no, Chris, I'm so sorry. A few girls had grasped in the same direction. As Chris turned her way, I saw why. Her beautiful dress was stained down the front from Celeste's punch. It looked like Chris had been stabbed. I'm sorry, I just turned too fast. I didn't mean to, Chris. Let me help you. To the average person, Celeste's tone probably sounded sincere, but I could see through it. Chris turned her mouth as she started to cry, then ran from the room, which ended the party. To his credit, Maxton went after her, though I really wish she had stayed. Celeste was pleading her case to anyone who would listen, saying it was a complete accident. Tuesday was nodding, saying she saw the whole thing, and there was so many rolling eyes and sagging shoulders for the rest that her support was pointless. I quietly put my violin away and went to leave. Marlene grabbed my arm. Should do something about her. If Celeste could move someone as lonely as Anna to violence, and to think it was acceptable to try and take a dress off your back and make someone as good as Marlene come close to anger, then she really was too much for the selection. I had to get that girl out of the palace.